Homemade pasta. All right, so handmade pasta, very, very simple. Now, I'm gonna kind of talk, Pete's gonna kind of do the work, yeah? So if anybody's got any questions, feel free to interject. This demo is gonna be very detailed. There's a lot of steps, there's a lot of techniques, there's a lot of things to kind of know, but at the same time, it's all very simple, fundamental things. Few ingredients, very few ingredients. What's most important is technique, okay? So Pete's gonna start. He's gonna take about 300 grams of flour and 3 whole eggs. Now when you're making homemade pasta, all right, 100 grams of flour to 1 whole egg. It's a general rule that you'll never fail with. You gonna sift that?
Yes.
Now we're gonna sift the flour, it aerates it, it kind of, separates all the, and allows you to mix eggs through it easier. So one of those techniques when making handmade pasta is make sure you sift your flour. Okay, so again, 2 people can be here doing the same thing. One sifts, one doesn't, you'll get a different result, okay? So a little sifting goes a long ways. So we're gonna sift 300 grams of flour for this example, and 3 eggs. So again, 1 egg to 100 grams, okay? And that equals about a portion for somebody. So it's kind of a general standard rule, 100 grams to 1 egg. Pasta can actually be made with just the flour and water. It can be made with flour and egg yolk, or it can be made with flour and whole egg. All right, I like to use whole egg. Some people like to use egg yolk, which will make it richer and fattier, and some people can use water. The only thing that changes when you change your liquid, okay, is how much you gotta knead it, okay? So one thing about the dough, it's only 2 ingredients, never any salt. Go ahead. So he's made a little well in the flour, okay? Just a small well. And he's going to whisk those eggs into it, and he's going to slowly try to incorporate the flour into the egg. Can everyone see this okay? You want to come forward, or? Yeah? We good now? So see how he's working from the edge of the flour where the egg is? He's not going right to here. So it's basically slowly incorporating into flour versus just dumping it in, all right? So as you can see, it's coming together. And he's making pasta. So 2 ingredients. You've got sifted flour and you've got eggs. And you've got homemade pasta, okay? So the next technique, when he gets it rolled out, is to actually make pasta out of it, okay? And in order to do that, you can have a machine like this, costs around $50, all right? Or you can do it with a rolling pin, all right? A rolling pin and a knife will do the same thing. So it's not like you need kind of all this special gear to make it. It can be made with a knife and a rolling pin. This stuff is handy if you're at it. If you really enjoy homemade pasta, you're gonna start making it once a week. It's nice to kind of get this because it just makes it easier. Makes it a little quicker, it's not as time consuming, and it's much easier. So you can see that it's all mixed together now. So what he'll do is, a little technique I like to use is he's just gonna fold out the wet stuff and take it out of the bowl, and you'll see that he's going to leave a little bit of the flour in the bottom. And the reason he's doing that is because whenever you're mixing wet ingredients into dry ingredients, so like a liquid into a flour, one of the key techniques to understand, all right, is that you always want to have more wet than dry to start. And that way you can keep incorporating it in dry until you get the texture and the feel you're going for. If you go the opposite way, and you go way too much flour and not enough liquid, you find yourself adding liquid back and it doesn't mix right. And you get really clumpy, unappealing results. So a general rule, okay, when making pasta or dough, is to make sure you keep anything that's not incorporated in a few turns aside, and you can work it in as you go if you need it. If you don't need it, then great. And again, a lot of this is about feel. So you can see he's just kind of working it together, and it's got a texture that's needs to be worked.
Yeah.
All right? So as he's working it, it's going to come together. The other thing that's critical to this in terms of technique, because again, all we've done is mix 2 ingredients together, key technique is to knead it. You really got to knead it, all right? You got to keep working it, and it requires about 5 to 10 minutes, depending on how much pressure, I guess, and strength you're putting into your kneading. So if you don't knead as hard, it's going to take you a little longer. If you're putting a lot of pressure like he's doing there now, it'll come together in a few minutes, okay? How's that texture coming, Peter?
It's good.
Looking good?
Still a little sticky now. It's coming out.
Looking sticky, a little
Starting
stiff.
to come together.
All right, so all he's done is form it. Now, as he keeps working it, all right, what you're going to do is you're going to get something that looks like this. Now, after it's kneaded, you want to let it sit in the fridge for about a half hour. 20 minutes to a half hour. And what that does is it lets the gluten in the flour relax a little bit, all right? Because as you're kneading it, that gluten is just mixed. The gluten in the flour is mixing with the liquid, and it's activating. And it makes it really tough. So you can see it's like really tough. Yeah? As that sits, it gets softer and softer and softer until you get kind of a really nice soft texture like this, okay? Now what I'm going to do here, I'm just going to jump in on Peter's space here. I'm going to put a little bit of flour there. I'm just going to cut this in half.
Okay.
A knife there. I'm just going to cut this in half so you guys get an idea as to, you know, I'm talking about the kneading. Can you guys see that? See how it's completely worked through? And it's all the same. There's not little pockets of dough in there or flour, dry flour. It's all incorporated through. When you get that result, you know you're in good shape. All right, you know you got good pasta. If you're not getting that, you're getting a lot of air bubbles and you're getting little pockets of white balls of flour, you need to keep working it, okay? So that's kind of an indicator as to where you stand. So that's pretty much homemade pasta. All right, so you can see the ball is coming along much better. Everything is incorporated through, and you can tell there's been a little bit of flour left over. So if he tried to keep this flour in there, it would have been tough and it would have been too dry. You would have been looking to add back more liquid. So that's why I was saying, don't just throw it in a bowl and expect it all to come together. There's a slight level of understanding that you got to incorporate in your dry into your wet. All right? How's that feeling now?
This feels really good right now.
Yeah, it's coming together really well, yeah?
Yeah.
So that, in effect, is homemade pasta. Nice ball. So we'd wrap that up in saran wrap, let it sit in the fridge, and that toughness, right, will turn into that in about a half hour in the fridge. Yeah? So now we've got our dough. Dough is done. It's in the fridge. No fuss, no muss. Take it out of the fridge, unwrap it, just like I did with this, and now we're going to roll it through our machine. Okay? We do have some more flour, do we? Did we bring any more down?
No.
We'll be hard pressed if we don't. That's all right. We'll make do.
I need flour.
So you can see it's a little even tacky and sticky now. We get
I'll get some.
we get Leah to get some flour.
She's gone. No, she's
Would you
gone.
mind?
No, she's already gone, I think.
We forgot the flour we needed for. We'll be all right. See, creative.
We're good.
So one thing when you start rolling out your pasta, all right, is that you want to make sure it's got lots of flour on it. Sometimes I'll even flour my machine, okay? So I don't know if you can, unfortunately I have to secure this to the table, so I know it's a little tough to see with the mirror, but all I'm going to do is I've got my setting. How these machines work, if you're not familiar with one, is they have settings on a dial, 0 through 9. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to take this sheet like this, and I'm going to work it through the numbers. So I'm going to start at 0, which is the widest, okay? And all I'm going to do is feed it through the machine. Can you see that coming out? And on the initial setting, I might fold it over a little bit and just make it back into a square, okay? And I'll feed that through one more time. All right? So I'm just trying to, all I'm doing here is trying to put it through and shape it into a nice, even kind of sheet shape, okay? So again, just feed that through one more time. And now I've got a nice shape, all right? So from there, I'm just going to keep thinning it out by adjusting my layer. Yeah? So not complicated, just a little bit of technique, okay? I'm going to put a little bit more flour on that and run that back through my machine. But before I do, I'm going to take that setting from 0 to 1. So now I'm on number 1. I run that through, and then change it to 2. Run that through, and you can see that the thickness of it is changing, the width of it's changing. Put it to number 3, and repeat. Okay? Again, getting a little thicker, to number 4, and repeat. Now, if you're noticing your dough is a little soft, like this one is, don't be scared of flour, okay? It'll come off in the water when you boil it, no worries. Because you're not incorporating it actually in, all right? So when you go into an Italian kitchen, they're making there's flour everywhere. And they're just throwing it on and throwing it, because it's just how it works, okay? So don't be shy with the flour. We'll feed this through. So we're at setting number 5 now. This is where I like to have it, because really it's at a thickness where it's going to be nice and al dente. It'll have like a center to it. If you start going thinner, it's perfectly okay, it's preference, but it's going to cook faster and it's not going to have that texture as much there. So it all depends on what your style is for pasta, okay? So from there, all I'm doing with this machine is you've got a component for just rolling, which is what I did here. Then you've got this component for cutting. So this one here has like a linguine cut, like a wide cut, and like a capelli spaghetti cut, all right? So for this carbonara recipe, we're gonna go with the thicker kind of fettuccine cut. So I'm just gonna lay that there like this, and this is where a machine like this comes in really handy, okay? Because what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna feed this through, and as I'm feeding it through, a little patient with me. As soon as it catches, I can let it go. And as soon as I catch it, oops, it's a little awkward here.
Oh, yeah.
So there you go, fresh made pasta. Now what's great about this drying rack, okay? This drying rack is about $30, this machine's about $50. So it's a bit of an investment, but it's not great. You just turn it, and your pasta dries, okay? Now you can cook this fresh just like this, no problem, no worries. Or you can let it dry, flour it, wrap it in a nest, and you can store it and use it tomorrow, or can't let it go too long because there's fresh egg in there, but it doesn't have to be used right away. You've got that little bit of time that you can dry it if you like. But in the case today, we're gonna cook this and we're gonna eat this. So that's kind of the dough that Peter made. Let it rest. Once it's rested, cut it into manageable blocks, feed it through your machine to the level that you want, and then cut it into spaghetti or cut it into whatever. So if you don't have a machine, what you would do is use a rolling pin, keep rolling it out, and then kind of layer it over and cut it with a knife. And it'll just come out in the strips just like that. So again, you don't technically need one of these machines, but they're awfully handy, okay? So, so in terms of fresh made pasta, we'll go through this one more time, and then we'll start cooking it. And then what we'll do is we'll show you a really simple sauce and a really simple kind of finished dish with the fresh pasta, all right? So before we move forward, has anyone got any questions about the pasta dough? Does anyone have any? Semolina flour? Yep, absolutely. Semolina flour is a type of flour that can be used for making pasta.
We don't have one.
But that's an Italian thing. It'll work just like this will, but it's just a taste thing is all it is. Just a kind of a personal preference for taste. You can get a lot of ingredients these days, so semolina flour is available. Peter, do you know anywhere where?
Semolina flour? You can get it at Food for Thought. You can get it at Sobeys. I think you can get it at Dominion.
So it's definitely available. and it's a choice if you want to use it. Yeah, one thing about Italian flour, you may have heard, like if you're watching cooking shows, you may have heard people say 00 flour or Tipo 00. All it is, we have some of the best flour in the world in Canada. It's at about a 12% protein level, and that's what makes Italian flour so good, is the protein level. But what they do is they grind it at a finer grind. So when you touch our flour and you touch theirs feels softer, like fine grains of sand. So it just makes it easier to incorporate in the liquid. So it makes for a nicer texture, but it's not necessary. You can make fresh pasta with normal, everyday flour, all-purpose that you get at the store, no fuss, no muss. Now, without talking, I'm just gonna kind of whip through this to show you guys just how quick, once you get a hang of it, of course, it's like anything, just how quick you can kind of move through and have yourself another sheet of pasta. All right, it's kind of like as quick as you can.
No, we're okay.
It's kind of as quick as you can go. So once I get this pasta kind of rolled out and made, we're gonna put it into the pot and start boiling, and then Peter's gonna take over and show us how to make a nice mushroom bacon carbonara pasta dish. Really simple, again, a few ingredients and ready in minutes. So I'm at setting number 5 now, which is right where I want to be. That's, for me, you know, personally, that's a perfect number. For other people, can you give me some flour?
Yeah.
So again, I need a little bit of flour here. I can get a sense of it. So
Thank you.
Going through the machine. I put it into my cutter. Run it through. Grab my little stick. The reason this stick is helpful is simply because if not, I end up bunching it together. So one strand will overlap the other, and it tends to stick together. And that's exactly what you don't want. See how I just stuck those together? That'll end up, if you don't flour that really well, you'll never get those apart. So that's what makes this kind of fairly handy, right? And I'll illustrate that in a minute. In the meantime, how about we say we cook this stuff, yeah? So you notice when Peter made the dough, it was 2 ingredients, flour and eggs. No salt, none. Salt goes in the water, all right? And you gotta have a lot of it. This water should taste like the sea. That's how much salt you need, okay? Get some salt there. So in this case, you can see I got a pot of water. I've got about, that might be a teaspoon of salt, not enough.
Ah.
There's another,
right
back here, salt. So again, we're talking water, so I'm gonna throw all that in, and I'm gonna put in more again, okay? So I'm gonna put in probably about 3 tablespoons, or 3 teaspoons, sorry. And I wanna make sure that salt's dissolved in that water before I add my pasta, okay? We have a set of tongs? Oh.
I got tweezers.
That's fine, that's all right. Awesome, all right, so we're rocking and rolling here. I'm gonna give this pasta to Peter. And what Peter's gonna do is just flour it, make sure it's not stuck together, okay? Now again, all this is made with 2 ingredients, flour and eggs. Very simple, very easy to do, okay? How's that feeling, Peter?
It's feeling great. Making little nests is also a good option without the rack.
Yeah, making a mess is always fun in the kitchen, as long as you got someone around to help you clean it up, or do it all for you, you know? Sometimes we're not as lucky, you know? All right, so I'm just gonna get this out of the way, because we don't need this anymore. And you can see how handy these little things are. I mean, they're really well designed, compact, not in the way. Great, right? We'll just clean ourselves up a bit here. All right, so moving right along.
So now we're moving to, we're going to cook the pasta.
Peter, go ahead.
Waiting for the water to come back up to a boil.
Crank her down. That'll take 2 seconds. Oh, just stick with that.
That just jumped. So this is going to come back to a boil. Don't drop your pasta into not boiling water. Drop it into boiling water always. It won't fresh pasta cooks quicker than dried pasta. So if you dried that overnight, it would take longer to cook than what we're going to cook right now. This is going to cook really quickly.
Why don't you talk a bit about drying pasta there, Peter?
Drying pasta, you can actually put this fresh in your fridge overnight and keep it for 2 days. You'll see the moisture content change. You can have it on a rack and dry it and keep it in your cupboard or your kitchen overnight and use it the next day. This is, it's very, very versatile, especially when you get into doing ravioli and agnolotti, like stuffed pastas. Really, when you get into stuffed pasta, the whole meal is the pasta. Pretty much what we're going to do right here is the whole meal is the pasta. Other than the bacon, eggs, again, cream, and the mushrooms, and salt. Yeah. That's pretty much it,
and to Peter's point, like, this is pasta dough, and we're doing linguine or fettuccine. That what you can do with this raviolis,
agnolotti, caramelli,
anything you see
cavatelli
pasta can be made out of this dough.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's kind of a whole world out there of pasta making. We're trying to introduce you guys to the very basics of it, but you'll learn. You can be at this for a lifetime and still be learning all the time. This is a really kind of simple, but yet incredibly complex and kind of technique-driven skill. But I tell you one thing. When you're in your kitchen and you're making fresh pasta and you're sitting down with friends and family and you know that pasta's been made by hand, there's something special to it, you know, and watching everyone eat it and know the quality of it, there's something special about it. So it's not something that, you know, you want to come home at lunchtime at work and try to make, but it's certainly something that's very reasonable to do at home for guests and family that you love are coming over to share with and to have with. Can't beat it, in my opinion.
Can you guys see the pot very well with the pasta in it?
Can we get a view of that pot boiling with the pasta, or can we shift that
This
over?
This will cook extremely fast. If you saw it when it went in, it just swelled up.
We see that now?
This is going to be cooking in like 30 seconds.
So what's happening is the water is actually absorbing into the pasta, and it's actually making it kind of puff up, yeah?
So now we're going to get ready on our sauce. This is a very simple carbonara recipe. This is yolks, and it's equal part yolks. So if you do one yolk, it's by volume the same amount of cream, of 35% whipping cream. So we have 4 yolks, so we're adding in the equal amount by volume of cream. So the sauce is going to be thickened by, this actually isn't going to hit the heat for very, very long. It's going to be very fast because the heat of the pasta will be cooking it, and then it'll be a slight bit of heat to cook the eggs. So, and again,
again, this sauce is 2 ingredients: egg yolk and cream, equal parts. So it's not complicated, it's equal parts. Take the pasta right out of the water and right into that. And we're going to mix that together. The only thing you got to be careful of is when you put that back on the stove, you don't want your heat too high because it'll cook the egg and it'll turn it to scrambled eggs. So the only little bit of technique and cautiousness you have to have when making this sauce is to not put that on too high a heat and cook the egg. So as you can see, it's coming together really, really nicely. So as I was saying earlier, if you want and you don't have you roll that out with a rolling pin, you can overlap the dough like that. Take a knife and just cut it in strips with a knife. And you'll have the exact same thing that this machine did, just with a knife and a rolling pin, okay? So you don't need this to give this a try. All you really need is a rolling pin, a little bit of a rolling pin, a little bit of flour and some eggs, and just the willingness to give it a go, you know? And I think if you do give it a try at home, you'll be awfully impressed with yourself, I think, and you know, hopefully you give a chance to cook for your family with it and have a go. So, can we see that sauce? It's kind of thickened on its own, you know, with the egg yolks and the water.
It's coming together.
It's starting to come together.
I'm going to add a little bit of parm now to it. This will also bind the sauce. It'll bind the sauce to the pasta, like a finely grated parm. You'll see it coming together in front of you. It's such a simple, straightforward tasting dish. It's not funny how good it is.
Just to come back to the dough, you can see how tough that was when we first kneaded it. I don't know if you guys remember, now we didn't even have it in the fridge or wrapped, but already it's starting to soften up and come together. And that's all the time it takes really to get your pasta dough ready to go.
So the way we're doing carbonara today, we have mushrooms that are already cooked, and we have bacon that we cooked a little bit earlier, so it's crispy. So it's not just fatty, soft bacon. This is adding a crispy texture to the dish. So when we start this, we're going to start plating.
Sure.
All right. And where's your...
Right here.
Ah. And we're going to start with a little bit of parm on the bottom, a little bit of mushroom and bacon on the bottom, and then we're going to layer pasta in and put bacon and mushroom in, so you're not just going to get all the toppings on top.
Yeah, if you just dump pasta in a bowl and top it with something, you notice that you start eating it and the top has it and the bottom doesn't. It's kind of like no fun, right? So what we like to do with this when we plate it is put a little bit of your and this is versatile. You don't have to go bacon and mushroom. You can go chicken and carrot if you want. I mean, whatever your tastes are, mix it in with the pasta. So by laying it there, when you get to the bottom of the bowl, you're finding little surprises down there, right, of bacon and cheese, and it's not just on top. So he's going to mix that together and kind of show you guys how to layer that pasta. Jamie, you check on our samples?
So
Oh,
that's the first layer.
So that's layer one. So on the bottom, a little cheese, a little mushroom, a little bacon. It's looking good, Pete.
Yeah, it looks really good.
Looking real good. Just lay it right there, yeah. Right on top there, Joey.
Thank you.
And always want to remember to season with salt and pepper, okay? So make sure you season with salt and pepper. And there's lots of salt in the Parmesan, so that's more of a personal preference taste. But always remember to season your pasta. Make sure you season your water. Make sure you season your pasta, okay? These are also handy little rigs. You've probably seen these in restaurants. So when it comes to great Parmesan cheese, we just put a few in there. And you can see it, you know, just great, nice Parmesan. You can buy Parmesan in the store like that. I'm sure you've seen it. The black pepper.
With the pepper and parm on top.
Nice. Now, I don't know about you guys, but that looks fantastic. Yeah? I mean, and you know, to be honest with you, the only thing that we did ahead of time, okay, was we let that pasta dough set. But we still made it here. So in the time we stood on stage to the time we're going to go off stage, which might be 30 minutes or 40 minutes, we've got this completed dish. Fresh made pasta, handmade, hand rolled out, and then a completed sauce with bacon and mushroom. So with the bacon, all we did was lay it in on strips on a baking sheet, the oven in 350 until it's crispy. And then the mushrooms.
Sauteed with a little bit of olive oil and a little bit of butter.
Yeah. Right.
Salt and pepper.
Salt and pepper, a little seasoning. So we got that in advance, and that is, well,
That's it?
That's handmade pasta with a mushroom and bacon carbonara sauce in a matter of less than an hour.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so pasta is a tricky thing to sample, all right? Very hard to kind of do. So what we decided to do was when you ever get a pasta dish, you've always got a nice pasta dish with some bread, right? So we took some crostinis, made some pasta, put the pasta onto the bread, topped it with a little piece of bacon for you, okay? So we're actually going to cut those in half.
Are we?
Yeah, unless we got some more crust. Want to make sure we got enough for everybody, but we're, I think, ready to start passing out some samples. So
All right.
anyone wants to come up and give it a try? Yeah, we're going to have to cut those in half. Anyway, guys, thanks very much. We're done for the day. We'll be back here again tomorrow. We'll have samples over here to eat. We'll be doing demonstrations on stage. Hope you guys enjoyed the show. Hope to see you back, and hope to see you come up and try some pasta carbonara.